What's up, everyone? It's Denise Salcedo. Welcome back to the channel. My guest for today, you guys know this man. He is the president of Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling. Please welcome Scott D'Amore. Scott, welcome back to the channel. It's been quite a bit since we've had you on. So, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me back. I think the first time that you ever did an interview with me was in LA in the studio, the Access Studio there at LA Live. So
That's the first and only interview we've done
yeah,
together. So I'm
yeah,
so glad you remembered that because that was a very cool experience, like to get to do the interviews in person in a
yeah.
really nice studio. Obviously, now that feels like, 10 years ago, even though it's just a
Right.
couple of years ago, but so much has changed.
Remember when everybody had to be in the same room to do something? Like how crazy was that?
It really is crazy, honestly. But wow, Scott, so much has changed. You are now, running Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling. Congratulations. You guys got shows coming up on March 14th and March 15th. So we're just a couple of days away. I guess I want to start off with, I've never ran a show, I've never promoted a show. What are the days before a big event like for you?
They're hectic, they're stressful, they're exciting. There's so much to do, and there's so many people that have to tackle so many different obstacles and so many different tasks and challenges. I always would say, in the impact days and everything else, at the end of a weekend where we'd done a show or a couple of shows, Jimmy Jacobs and I would sit there and he'd be like, "Yeah, yeah, we did it. Like we did wrestling." And there's that feeling of accomplishment. And heading into it, there's the excitement, the anxiety, and all of it, which just makes what we do so rewarding. So it's all those emotions rolled into one, and we're ready. Let's get at it.
Oh my gosh. Well, I got to tell you, like, more power to you because I think it's very, very cool what you're doing right now with Maple Leaf Wrestling. There was just a lot that, last year you guys ran your MLP Forged an Excellent show. 2 nights had so much buzz. Everybody was talking about it. Very, very cool to see that. And coming off of those 2 big nights of pro wrestling, going into these shows now, what do you think the fans can expect for those that did tune in to the first shows and those that didn't tune in to the first shows?
Yeah, no, great question. I think that you can see or expect the same thing that you got back in October, which is world-class professional wrestling, featuring the very best from Canada, mixed in with some of the very best from around the world. You can see you're gonna see, top quality production values that you don't usually see on an independent event. Like we are doing full broadcast style production here, with a goal for where we're looking to head. And I think that's always a fun experience for wrestling fans. It's great. It's great. There's WWE and everything that exists in a universe all its own when it comes to that level. And then there's the coolness of the independence, and that's a little more raw and simpler, and that has its values. But it's kind of cool to go out there and kind of take that approach and give an opportunity to a lot of these wrestlers, a lot of this talent that hasn't had an opportunity to work on this type of setting, to have a video wall, to have all the lights and the sound and this level of stuff. I think it's great for the talent. It's a great learning experience, and I think it's a celebration of what indie wrestling is and can be, both at its simplest form and its more elevated form. And I think fans can expect, if they tune in this weekend, then they're going to get their money's worth and more if they invest in MLP with both their money by purchasing a ticket or buying it on Triller TV, the pay-per-views, and just as importantly or more importantly, with their time, because time is the most important and valuable thing we have. So when people set aside their time to spend it with us at MLP, we don't take that for granted.
One of the things, Scott, that I personally like about what you do, and it was something that you did in TNA and something that you continue to do here, is that you have a very interesting way of choosing, who's going to wrestle who, what matchups we're going to see. I remember last time when you did Takeshita and Josh Alexander, I was like, all right, hands down, that's it. I know exactly. Was just like a confirmation of like Scott putting up these matches that the fans want to see, especially this like diehard community. I know you kind of mentioned it's kind of a little bit of a hybrid of what you would see with your TNAs, your AEWs, your WWEs, but also your independent pro wrestling. So when you put these cards together and you know that this is, relatively, a new version of this promotion, so you got to win the fans over. How do you decide, and what's your, I guess, philosophy in terms of putting certain matches together and certain people together?
I mean, look, there's the current style that a good amount of people enjoy, which is the action-packed, fast-paced, high-flying wrestling, and we certainly want to showcase that, and that's why we have people like Kaito Kiyomiya and Taji Ishimori and Kushida and Kevin Knight and Alex Zane, and the list goes on and on. But we also like to mix it up, with different styles. And Jimmy Hart told me years ago, wrestling when it's done right is like the circus. There's something for everybody. Somebody may like the high wire act. Somebody else may like the person being shot out of the cannon. Somebody may like the juggler. Somebody may like the clown car. So we try to give a blend and a mix of everything. So there's a little something for everybody, but a cross genre kind of approach that people can enjoy. Both the style they like and experience and taste the styles that maybe they're less exposed to. So I think we like to put together a mix, right? Like on this one, you have the NWA World Championship. And you have that championship being defended by Tom Latimer, who is a prototypical big, strong, powerful world's champion. And he's facing a guy, a real intriguing match, I think, when you got Bishop Dyer, a guy who is just formerly Baron Corbin, just come out of a very long, successful run with WWE. And Dyer is a guy who in WWE he's won tag team champion. He's been the United States champion. He's been king of the ring. He's done all of these things. What he hasn't been is world champion. So I think at a real level, we have a guy who's accomplished everything but being world champion, getting his opportunity to get in the ring and face the NWA World's Champion for the oldest world championship in American professional wrestling, the NWA World's Championship. That to me is super cool. We get an opportunity to do something that I've been blessed to be proud of doing for many years now, which is showcase amazing female athletes. And here we're going to have the first two rounds, the quarterfinals and the semifinals of the MLP Women's Championship to crown the first ever in Maple Leaf history Canadian Women's Champion. It's a travesty that there's never been one, and we get to write that here this year by having this tournament. We've got some fantastic talent with Kylie Ray and Lady Luck and Giselle Shaw and Taylor Rising, and I mean Serena Deeb's just joining the field. Like it's an outstanding field of amazing female athletes. So, like I said, I think we've got a great mix of international and Canadian. I think we've got a great mix of high flying versus hard hitting. We've got great male talent. We've got great female talent. We roll it into one family friendly package. Oh, and we got PCO.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I love me PCO, man. PCO is not human. I mean, that dude. It's funny because I love what you said about what Jimmy had told you, which is that people. And wrestling's like a circus, right? Everybody loves something different. And when I was hearing you say that, I'm like, oh my God, that is so true. Because I know for me, like, well, I enjoy all wrestling. There's certain matches and certain types where I'm just like, giddy. I'm going to jump out of my seat. That's the one that was, booked for me. That's what I want to see. And so that is very cool. And hearing you talk about, being able to crown the first ever, women's champion for Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling, that's very, very cool. And especially, Women's History Month this month. So that just lined up perfectly, of course. With that being said, you mentioned having people from different promotions and whatnot. How do you go about that? Because as we know in pro wrestling, you have to constantly be negotiating with other promotions and trying to decipher, like, okay, is my guy going over? That guy's going over. And, obviously, I don't want to get too much into the weeds and break down the fourth wall, right? But also, just like from your perspective of balancing those relationships with those other promotions to make sure that their talent is, being taken care of and trying to navigate the politics and all of that of pro wrestling.
Yeah, and I mean, look, there's times that politics pops up in pro wrestling. It's great when it doesn't, but sometimes it's just the reality. But I find these days there's a lot more of a open philosophy, and there's a lot more of an open mind to doing things. Like there was a day and time where we wouldn't be able to have pro wrestling Noah talent mix it up with New Japan Pro Wrestling talent. We have that here. There was a time when you couldn't have an NWA World Champion facing a guy who hasn't competed in the NWA. There was times where like these type of things couldn't happen. And I think overall, when you look at it, I I think that the cross promotional aspect of professional wrestling is such a big part of what the business is today, and that's something like I chatted with Jeff Jarrett. We caught up last week, and part of what we talked about, I was like, Double. I go, you think about it, you look at everything that's going on with wrestling and all these collaborations, and I think you and I were two of the guys that were out there 10, 12 years ago, and even earlier saying this is what we have to do. You look at that early TNA, we went out there and said, hey, let's get in the luchadors and let's incorporate lucha libre into this. Let's go out and let's get a relationship in Japan and work with Japan. Let's do these things. And I think when that's done, and if you can keep the politics and everything to a minimum, then it creates a great situation where everybody wins, right? I mean, both companies win, and then most importantly, the fans win for being able to see these matchups. Like we have a three-way match that we just announced a couple days ago with Kiyomiya versus Alex Zane versus Tayo Ishimori. And it's almost like my social media guy hit me up and said, "Boy, like Japanese Twitter is going crazy for this three-way announcement, right? And like the engagements are through the roof, and it's all on the Japanese side because it's the match that they haven't seen in Japan. And while it might happen, because Kiyomiya has been competing some in New Japan, he had that famous match and mini feud there with Okada. This is you got the ace from Noah stepping in the ring with two guys from New Japan, and that's a cool, intriguing match, I think, for people. So that's the fun of being able to mix it up and be able to kind of put things in a salad bowl and shake it up and come there and say, hey, what can we do in here that's cool and different that you wouldn't see in other places?
And you really have to be on the pulse of things like that, right? Because in the pro wrestling worlds, like not only are you keeping up with the mainstream, right? AW, WWE, TNA, all of that, right? And then you got the indies, and then you got, what's going on in Japan and what's going on in Mexico. It's really a lot, Scott, for you as a promoter. You obviously have to know who's out there. What is like, how do you make sure that hey, this is what's going on here? I'm following this storyline. This is what's going to get, Japanese wrestling fans going, American fans going, and the hybrid of the ones that love both. How do you keep up with all of that?
I mean, look, it's daunting, and I don't know that there's many individuals that can keep up on everything around the world. So I think a key part of it is making sure that you if you can't sit down and watch everything, at least try to follow what's going on every place and follow the trends and check out enough of the stuff that's hitting and that's missing sometimes the mark to kind of do your best to have it. And I think it's a team effort. I don't think it's not just me. It's a group of people here. Like Jimmy Jacobs is here with us, working with us, and I mean he's got this pulse on things. And there's a team here that the Border City Wrestling team, as I call it, that's been here for some of them for 30 years with us here plus as we do it, and everybody contributes. And it's, hey, what about this idea? Hey, did you see this? Check this out. And in this day of social media, this day and age of social media and everything else, I rely on, and I know lots of other people do, is somebody like it's oh, did you see this? And it's somebody like I messaging you or texting you a clip of something that happened on Raw or something that happened at Revolution on the weekend or different stuff. So I don't know. Like God bless somebody who does, but if you sit down and you watch Revolution on Sunday and 3 hours of or whatever it ends up being, 2.5 hours, whatever, of Raw on Monday now these days, and then Tuesdays you've got NXT, Wednesday you've got AEW, Thursday you've got Ring of Honor and TNA, Friday you got SmackDown, Saturday you have lots of premium live events, plus you've got Major League Wrestling, you've got local indies, you got everything going in Japan, you've got Lucha, and you're just like, I can't watch it all, even if I wanted to. So if you can't watch it all, try to be aware of the trends, right? And follow the trends and see what's going there and sample different products, right? Maybe you can't watch Major League Wrestling every week, but go out of your way to watch some of the stuff and see what they're doing there, because there's great stuff being done everywhere. Make sure you go out and check out some of the NWA stuff. I mean, they have a very unique style and vision. Billy Corgan has a vision for what type of wrestling he wants to see on his show, and it's very different. And maybe it's not what you're used to watching, but check it out, because even if it's not necessarily the product that's for you, there's probably some things, if you're in the industry, that you should be looking and saying, oh, they did that, I see what they did, that's neat. Like I can take inspiration from that. So I think it's sampling and doing the best you can, because I don't think anybody can be in the know on everything in this business, and that's one of the things that makes it such a great business.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's just so much that goes down in the wrestling world that unless you're in it, you don't really realize how much of it there is. But that being said, of course, Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling is a Canadian brand, but you want to appeal to a wider audience. How do you figure out how to do that? Because again, you're trying to convince people, hey, tune in and watch this product, but also it's a Canadian product. So, how do you go about that?
I mean, look, Canada has a rich wrestling history. It goes back decades. It goes back to 1930 with the beginning of the original Maple Leaf Wrestling. You look at all the Canadian stars that have came through during the years. I think it's important for us here as Canadians in Canada to celebrate that. And Maple Leaf Pro is paying homage to Maple Leaf Wrestling. It's also just standing up and saying, here we are. We're Canadian and we're really proud of what we do. And in order to showcase the best Canadians and show that they are elite, you have to put them with the best from in the world. And that means you need to have Americans, you need to have people from Europe, you need to have like Japanese has one of the best wrestling scenes out there. That's why we've got Kiyomiya coming back here and everything else and showcasing talent from all over the world. So, I mean, look, to me, we are Canadian. We're proud that we're Canadian. It's a part of our identity as a company. But at our core, we're putting out great wrestlers from around the world that I think anybody should be able to enjoy. It's like it would be like if you look and see the popularity of New Japan and that throughout the U.S. and around the world. They've been able to fill buildings in places, not just Japan, because it's New Japan Pro Wrestling, but it's not just Japanese. It's their style, it's their culture, but at its core, it's professional wrestling, the thing that we all love.
Yeah, when you mentioned that, I'm remembering the first time, and this was, of course, several years ago now, the first time that New Japan Pro Wrestling came out here to where I live in Los Angeles, and they did a show in Long Beach at it wasn't the Pyramid back then. I think it was by the aquarium or something, right? And I remember it being like sold out to the brim because people were so excited about this, promotion coming down here to our area and showcasing the talent that they had made and seen, obviously, in Japan. So I do get that, like, correlation of people wanting maybe something like a little bit different from what they're used to, but also something that definitely gets, the ball, get them excited and whatnot. So here's the thing is that you ran the two shows last year at the tail October, and now fast forward, we're in March. These two shows are coming up. You guys already have a show announced in May. Correct? You can correct me if I'm wrong. But so, what is the schedule that you ideally are looking to have? Because there's obviously, a couple months of separation between the shows. Like, what kind of promotion, is Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling going to be in the long run?
Yeah, look, I think eventually the goal would be to be rolling out content on a consistent basis. Now, whether that's weekly, whether that's monthly, whether that's running for 15 weeks as a season and taking a break and coming back for a second part of the season later in the year, all of those options are on the table. Like really what we're focusing on right now is building our infrastructure, building our brand. We went out there in October. We wanted to get out there. We wanted to have events and we wanted to partially say this is what we are and then start going out and meeting people and saying this instead of talking conceptually because everybody in the entertainment business can give you a song and dance and say this is what we can deliver if you let us. So October is about going out there and showing and saying this is what we did deliver. So now that we've done that, you'll look and you'll see that we're back here in March with these events, which are great events to have, and these events coming up. And right now, this week, they're the most important thing to us. But then we're looking, as you said, at May and going to Toronto, the biggest market up here, and returning to our spiritual home. Because in May we go to the Mattamy Athletic Center, which is the former Maple Leaf Gardens that housed Maple Leaf Wrestling for so many years. So that's such a big, important moment in this company's history that's going to be and then we're looking at other cities to go to. I mean, eventually the goal would be to run from Vancouver to Halifax, right, and go coast to coast. But we have to crawl before we walk and walk before we run. So I think coming back here to Windsor, two amazing nights with talent from all over the world, sets the stage perfectly and gives us that opportunity to gather, rep, and start setting the course for such an important show at Maple Leaf Gardens. And then you'll see by the time we get to Maple Leaf Gardens, you'll see other stuff rolled out through the remainder of the year. And you're going to see different type of content too. You're going to see like, hey, here's our PLE style, like full broadcast style professional wrestling. One of the things we want to do is we want to stay at its core. We want to stay a flexible wrestling company. So Maple Leaf Wrestling in its heyday, you could go on a Sunday to Maple Leaf Gardens in front of 12,000 people and see this massive show. But then the next night they might be in Brampton, out there wrestling for 400 or 500 people and having more of a grassroots style event, right? Maintain one or two of the stars that you had there at Maple Leaf Gardens, then fill out the card and give that truly more conventional independent feel. So we'll be doing events throughout the summer like we always do, historically up here like so many other people. Running events that are festival and outdoor events and we'll do some of those type of events, and those will all be part of billing into the pillars, into those tent poles, which are going to be your PLE style events. So I think when you combine that and you do what we do, I think as good as anybody. We're just starting to get rolling with it, but as you see the video packages and the promotional videos that we put out, they're among the very best, right? And we want you to know, not just, hey, that used to be Baron Corbin. This is Nomad Bishop, Dyer, and this is what he's about. This is where he's at now in his career. This is what he's looking at. And I think when fans start to see that and start to looking in that, they can start to relate and understand the characters. And for pro wrestling to matter, you need to understand, you need to relate, you need to connect. There needs to be a connection between wrestler and fan. And I saw AJ Styles talking about creating moments. Creating moments is ultimately what we do in this business. It's moments and memories. And in order to do that, you need that connection. And I think we're starting to take the steps. Like, we're shooting so much content here this weekend. Yes, the PLEs, which I think are going to be 2 nights of amazing, unbelievable action. But then we've got cameras all over the place backstage, so we can start capturing some of the things to give you a glimpse at who these people are as individuals, who they are as characters, who they are as performers. So as we grow and develop this brand and this product, you're going to have that attachment, right? When you tune in to Monday Night Raw, Seth Rollins, John Cena, The Rock. Like, you have that connection. When you tune on AEW, I mean, you know who Kenny Omega is, you know who Will Ospreay is, and we want to do that for these wrestlers, both the known ones, like, even with the Billy Guns and the Bishop Dyers and the Matt Cardonas, but also very importantly for the Mike Rollins and for the Kevin Knights and for the Michael Allen, Richard Clark, the man with the longest name in professional wrestling. We want you to get to know these characters so you have a deeper feeling and more of an attachment when you watch them perform.
I love that. Sell the audience. Exactly. Like, you got to get them like to get invested, because I mean, that's at the end of the day what, everybody here that's listening to this interview at some point has connected to a wrestler or wrestlers. And that's part of what kept them, tuning in to see that person's journey and then, develop more fandoms and whatnot. So that is very, very, very important. I do want to go ahead and get into, there's a big difference now between when you were working with TNA and obviously now with Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling, in that with TNA, you had, the powers that be above you kind of, also maybe delegating, I don't know, but obviously everyone has like the corporate people above them. Now, and with Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling, it's you and your team. How different is it? And how do you feel as someone that has, done so much, worn so many hats in pro wrestling? How do you feel about the things that you're able to, how you're able to handle things now with your own promotion?
Yeah, look, I think there's a difference, but honestly, I don't feel a massive difference. I mean, some of the constraints that we had in TNA, we still have here, financial. Some of the restraints that we had in TNA, we still have here, which is, we have a very small shop. We used to always joke in Impact, boy, we're so low on human resources, right? On manpower, right? Here, it's that times 10. So I think if there's one thing we learned in October at Forged in Excellence, was the amount of things that even at the impact level, on a small shop as we call it, that just kind of get done automatically as we're going through the process. We're like, ooh, we need someone to do that. We need someone to do that. Oh, we didn't even think about somebody to do that. So I think it's intriguing and it's fun and it's exciting to build a team from scratch. When I came in, when Don Callis and I came in 2018 at the late end of 17 going into 18 to start running Impact, there was something in place. We might not have agreed with the model. We might have wanted to make changes, but there was a default setting. Here with MLP, there is no default setting. Everything we're doing is from Genesis. So like that's kind of neat and fun. And I think one of the biggest challenges in a good way for MLP is building from scratch, right? While we do have a 95-year history going back to 1930 with the original Maple Leaf Wrestling. In essence, we're brand new and we're starting from scratch, and we've got to build up that rapport. We've got to build up that trust. We've got to build up that library. Like if I look at things, even as we go to tell stories, like I talk about the video package, that we don't have footage on these guys. Like at Impact, we had a 20+ year library, right, to go in there and pull stuff from. Like we have some, but not enough, and a lot. We don't have some of the things we need. So a lot of it is finding ways to tackle those things in new engaging and effective ways, right? It's not effective for us to say, hey, we're going to have 6 camera crews fly to 6 different cities to get comments. So in this day and age, stuff like this, right, like being able to do stuff over technology, has made a huge difference. So I mean, I think it's exciting. It's scary. It's out there. It's doing a high wire acts with no net, and that's one of the reasons why we do our best to measure twice and cut once, and on the days that we make mistakes, we work hard to hustle and to fix them or write the course. So, it's exciting to be there and be able to oversee a project like this. It's exciting to see the amount of amazing people that have came in to be part of this project, because you know I, I can't do all the stuff. I can't do half of it, and it's the Kevin Sullivans, it's the Tim Walberts, it's the people that come in and contribute. That like some of these people we have behind the scenes have been doing this for 50+ years. And we have so many great, industry leaders and experts, and to have a guy like Jimmy Jacobs, working here with us and being involved when it comes to just moving the pieces around the board and figuring out what to do. So, the one thing I felt very strong with MLP is, it's not Scott Demore's wrestling promotion. It's Canada's wrestling promotion. Like that's why, like I didn't appear on the last 2 shows in October. Don't really plan on appearing, barring any type of last second issue on these shows. I mean, I think it's important that these shows, we build a brand that's identity is its own, right? Like I love it. I'm passionate about it. I'll advocate for it. I'm sure you'll see me doing something on the show at some point, because that's just how wrestling is. But it's got to be something bigger than me. It's bigger than me with the amount of people that are working on making it something important and viable, and it's got to be bigger than any one person on the roster, behind the scenes, on every level, myself included.
I love that. No, I really, really do. I think that's very cool. I do have to ask you, Scott, because of course we've touched on TNA a little bit throughout this interview, and because you were with the promotion for several years, and like I said, wore many hats over there, did a lot. How do you feel now, having been gone from the company and sort of also seen a lot of what they're doing now, their collaboration with WWE, how that has sort of worked out because you kind of caught, some of that while you were there too. So, what do you think about what they're doing over there, as well as partnering with WWE?
Yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, the collaboration with WWE is a great thing. It's something that I was there at the very genesis of. Was one of the people there advocating for it, and was the person who reached out to WWE and saw it. And the regime there, the people at WWE that are there now, are sharp, and they were receptive to it. And we started those baby steps of it. Jordan in the Rumble, but we also were talking lots of other things, behind the scenes and direction and what could happen and where it could go. And you're starting to see a lot of those things come to fruition. So I think it's exciting. I think that collaboration is great in wrestling in general. And anytime that you can mix together different promotions, that I think it's beneficial to everybody. And specific in the WWE and TNA collaboration. I mean, look, WWE's, to call it the 800-pound gorilla isn't even fitting because it's so much bigger than that in our genre, in our industry. But they have so much talent and so many moving parts, and I think having a place like TNA that is at arm's length that you can send talent to, that they can get experience and move around, I think that's huge. And for TNA to be able to have the Joe Hendrys and the Jordan Graces and the Alex Hammerstones and the Mooses and the Rascals and the people that have appeared on NXT, like that's huge, right? Getting TNA in the conversation again. That was always one of the goals when we first reach out, and I think you're starting to see that the idea, the plans that we had, that hey, I'm not in that room anymore. Haven't been for over a year, so everything they're doing, they're coming up and doing with their own, without me and without some of the people that were there a year plus ago. But they're doing the very things we talked about, and I think it's great. So I mean, I think the proof's in the pudding. I think it's good for WWE to collaborate because they played in their own sandbox for so long, and I think whether it's TNA or whether it's AJ Styles and Shinsuke Nakamura going over and wrestling in Pro Wrestling Noah, whether it's seeing Natalia, like seeing Natty get a chance to compete in GCW and in an NWA. I think stuff like that is fantastic for the business, and I think it shows that it can be mutually beneficial to the companies, and more importantly, even more so beneficial to the fans.
How did you feel seeing Jordan Grace get her moment, sign with WWE? Again, like you mentioned, she was with TNA when she did the Royal Rumble, but also you'd known Jordan Grace for several years and really saw her, go from point A to point B and all of the work that she put in. And then also to add to that, I do want to get your thoughts on having seen Joe Hendry go out there in such a big spot representing TNA as the world champion. And again, having known Joe Hendry for several years and also seen his rise.
Yeah, I mean, look, obviously, I mean, I swell with pride with it. It's the same as when I see the machine guns out there, on SmackDown winning the tag titles and everything through the years. It's the feeling I felt when Rhino first won the ECW World Championship, right? As somebody who likes to at their core consider themselves a coach and likes to work with athletes and mentor people. I mean, I'm proud of them, and it was great to watch Jordan in the Rumble. I mean. By the time Jordan was in the Rumble, I already knew my fate pretty much in TNA at the time, but I was still able to enjoy it, right? For the journey she's had. And Jordan and I just still keep in touch. We're very good friends, and I'm proud of her. I'm happy for her. She deserves it. She's a star. And it was amazing to watch that. Just like it's been amazing to watch the growth from when her and I first uh you know met and talked about her coming into Impact, to seeing where she's grown as a woman, where she's grown as an athlete and a performer is truly inspiring. And I think it's something that's inspiring regardless of gender, race, etc. It's a cool story, and you look at what she's done and how she's developed and became like a effing rock star is so cool. And Joe Hendry, another guy, great guy. Like I met Joe years and years ago. I mean, he was the guy who did the funky songs and in ICW and stuff like that, and kind of made like an underground name for himself. So bringing him to Impact was something I was really strong on, and like Joe's told the story. So in a nutshell, tell it is like. One of the reasons that we were able to get Joe to come to Impact, to come to TNA, is because he had other people looking, but he saw or read an interview, from 2018 or 19, where I had said, there was three people I saw that day as that were guaranteed future world champions. It was Moose, it was Josh Alexander, and it was Joe Hendry. So I mean, look, I haven't been right on every prediction I made, but I'm proud to stand by those three predictions for sure. And I was proud and excited for him. And Joe's a great guy. So I don't chat with him as much as I'd like to, but we stay in touch. And Joe deserves everything that he's getting. I mean, he's you talk about being able to connect with people. Joe's found an unbelievable way to connect. And when you talk about these moments and what Jordan's done and what Joe's done and all this other stuff, and who gets the credit? Does WWE get it? Does TNA get it? Do I get some of it? Does Ed Norholm get it? Does Triple H get it? At the end of the day, the fans get it, because I think some of the stuff that really finally made people take the blinders off, like one of the moments I remember, and I'm sorry, I think it was a SummerSlam, maybe it was a Royal Rumble, but it was AJ Styles and Bobby Roode standing in the ring, and the crowd starts chanting TNA. And it let fans know, the fans let WWE know they hadn't forgot, and they weren't going to forget where these guys were from and the importance of TNA in the history of the wrestling landscape. So I think those are the type of things. Those are the first things that open that door just a crack to start this type of stuff. So when credits going around for why it's happening or who did it, let's not leave out the fans because they're the ones who at their core, even when sometimes it seemed like hope was lost, there were still people that had that TNA spirit in them and kept it alive. And that's one of the reasons why I felt very strongly about bringing the TNA brand back, which at times was not a popular concept at Anthem Sports and Entertainment. I think they feel a lot better about it now, but it's a brand I feel attached to. It's a brand that I got to hear stories from Josh Alexander and Sammy Callahan and people like that in the industry who grew up loving it. It was for me going around and being at shows and being in appearances and meeting fans who said, like, I was in a bad place in life. I was dealing with this or I had this going on. And watching TNA let me forget that and just love something for a bit. So knowing that value that TNA, those moments TNA had created, those memories TNA had created, that's where I was like, okay, this thing like can't just be part of something that used to exist. It has to exist again. And like I said, that's driven from the very core. That's driven from the fans. So when you look at the success of TNA and of the collaboration with WWE. And I'm not taking away from anybody on either side who's handling running that right now because they're the people moving the levers. But that movement was started by the fans, just like it usually and always almost in the best of circumstances should be.
Man, it's incredible how much has happened in such a short period of time. But yeah, I do think like you can't obviously, disregard a lot of the time that you spent there, and also sort of, helping alter and change the perception of TNA and getting people to go in there and, check it out. And just so many different stars that we saw continue coming out of TNA. Because for several years, we've seen so many different people really just like, make a name for themselves there. And God, I mean, I've talked to Kurt Angle about him saying that he thought the best years of his career were in TNA. And I have to agree with that. And so, obviously everybody has a different story, but I do think it's very cool. Scott, I do want to thank you so much for taking the time to come on here and chat with me because I really do like getting your perspective of, just all of this, having been in the business and done all that you've done for so long. Before we go, please tell the people where they can check out Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling on March 14th, March 15th, what they can see, where they can buy it, all of that.
Yeah, thanks. So it's MLP Mayhem. It's this Friday and Saturday, like you said, March 14th, March 15th. If you're in the area or want to make the trip, there's still limited tickets available, MLPwrestling.com. And if you can't, that's no problem because you can watch it from the comfort of your own living room. In this day and age, from out on the porch, from in your bed, whatever you want, on Triller TV, download the app or go to the website. Super easy to operate. I can operate the Triller TV app, which means they did a great job of it because I'm completely technology illiterate. So you can go to Triller TV. You can buy either night if you want, just to buy night one or night two itself. It's $20 each, or a great value. You can buy the bundle for $30 and get 2 nights of amazing action, featuring just so many great stars, from the Baron Corbins to the Kiyomias to the Billy Guns to the QT Marshalls to the Alex Zanes and Mr. Morrison. There's just so many. Check it out, MLPwrestling.com. Check out the cards. I think the cards are stacked. I think it'll be 2 great nights of wrestling. And I said this a lot at Impact. I continue to say it here. We don't take lightly when fans invest in what we do. And if they invest their money, that's very, very important. We take that seriously. We also take and cherish when they invest their time because that's the most valuable thing we have as human beings. And if you invest your money, if you invest your time to watch and be engaged in MLP Wrestling, MLP Mayhem this weekend, then we guarantee you we're going to give you a return on your investment of that in entertainment and passion and moments and memories.
I love that. I'm going to post all of the links to that in the description box below where you guys can follow them on social media as well as where you can purchase these shows and whatnot. So all of that will be in the description box below for those of you who are interested. Thank you so much again to Scott D'Amore. Guys, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much to everybody. We'll catch you guys on the next one. Bye, everyone.